Perfect. And we will go. Yeah. Flag football officiating with the topic of teamwork and keep the flow of the game. I think it was 11 slides. It will be a little different with some videos. The later part will be more like talking. It should probably have been better opposite way, but I will try to build on. So we kind of start from the bottom and make it more and more. I don't want to use the word complex, but there'll be a little bit more things that's more difficult to work with, I will call it. So as we see the agenda, we'll start with who am I. Then we will go to the officiating pyramid. Then there will be a short one on the rule change for this year. Then we are going to mechanics positioning. And this will not cover, it will cover above what we have in the rule book, most of it. And then next will be being a better you and how to elaborate your teammates. So just like when the players, or especially a good quarterback, can make the receivers look better, or a good blitz can make the defense look better, then it's also about how you as an official can make your fellow zebras looking better. Actually, I have mixed up in the because mechanics between plays will come after the mechanics with positioning, and then there will be something with the philosophy. And as I have written in the bottom, just ask questions, and there are no stupid questions, only impolite answers, and hopefully we need to avoid those as an official. And Devin, you may keep an eye on if there's anyone having a hand with questions.
Yes, of course. I'll let you know.
Because, I can only see my own, the presentation. So, yes, my name is Claes Scherwin Thalmann. I'm Danish, and I've lived here most of my life. As only half a year in Netherlands. Else I'm married, and I already added that I have 3 small girls. I have to wait 1 month to that to be true, but that will be the situation soon. And then I work in Velux with roof windows and pricing. And with flag football, I've been part since 2005. Started my years with what ended up as the Halo Rebels, formerly as a Renegades team, and then we moved to Halo and got a part of the tackle team and had the name Halo Rebels. Then some of our old players, we wanted to just have fun, and then we started Dark Hill Devils and lasted 2 years, only losing 1 game where I was not present. And then since 2 years ago, I've been playing in the league with the Nørrebro Snakebjørn. And on the field, not in stripes, my best results have been 2nd place in the Danish Championship back in 11. Also been 2nd place in Sport Monday Bowl in 16, where I was captain. And then, undefeated with Dark Hill Devils. I had the fun of being at the Champions Bowl last year. I had a record of 3-0 against the teams participating, winning against 3 different teams. So that was something I had a little bit fun of. And then probably the more actual part is the right side. I have officiated flag football since 2006. The one who taught me the rules is actually part of this meeting I saw. I will come back to him. Then I had games in the best Danish division since 2008. And I counted to 6 finals, with the first one in 2014. Then I have been at, every World Championship since 2012, having medal games in all of them, and actually officiated all 4 different medal games. I believe I'm the only one having done that. Then I've been officiating the European Championship in 15 in Spain and 19 in Israel, having the men's bronze game in Spain and the men's finals in 19. And then I was supervising for the championship in 17 in Copenhagen. And then I have also been at the Champions Bowl in 2008, 16 and 22. And I've also been at the Swedish finals 3 times in 16, 17, 18. And the UK Women's Championship Opal Series final in 16. It was a really busy year. And then last year I tried something completely new and went to the biggest flag football tournament in the US, the Worlds, they're calling it. Busy weekend, a lot of fun. I will come back to that tournament later. And then I had a lot of Sport Wonder Bowls finals the last 2 years. So that's then I also been teaching the rules in Denmark. I think since 2008, I think I probably had my first course together with some of the more experienced back then. Then we have the officiating fundamentals. You can see I have a nice pyramid on the right side. It's I learned it from when I started officiating tackle. I just changed 2 areas. So in the bottom we have the rules. They are easy to self-practice. You just have to read and learn. And you can do it multiple times. You can do it, as preparation for every tournament. Just, how is the rules? And that's just a basic fundamental. Everyone who knows the rules can go onto the field and do a proper officiating. Then we can add the mechanics, and videos can show you how to. IFAF Media made, I think, 5 great videos with Jet commentating and clips from the World Championship in 18, telling you how to act on the different positions. They are really recommendable, and else you can also read a little bit about the mechanics, and the rulebook is really slightly. Else the best way is experience. You have to officiate games, and if you're lucky, then you can watch your own games, or you have someone more experienced that can also correct you. And that part has been, from 2012, or at least those championships I've been to, there have been a supervisor coming around, and mechanics is always easy to give feedback on because it's visible and you can see it on every play if you're making the mechanics correct or you have something that needs to be corrected. In a tackle, they have it the opposite, that by knowing the mechanics you can look good. But in flag, I think the rules are more important because it's only 10 players on the field. Then we come to the more interesting part with the philosophy. And that's about like what and when to call. Also that you as a team, officiating team, needs to be aligned so it can be consistent. A championship is about all of the officials officiating being aligned. And Magnus, now you have to correct me, but I believe it was at the Euros 15 where we got a session before where we especially looked on illegal contact, so everyone knew where we wanted the line for illegal contact to be. And that was a really great part of getting everyone aligned. So we didn't see something being allowed in one game and then it was a foul in the next game. And here, video and discussions, the instant replay group on Facebook are really great tools to improve on this. Also to have the discussions. And there can be small twists that can adjust when or who to call on. And you can always see that some of the videos are getting a really good discussion and people are seeing two different things. Often it's not because they're disagreeing, it's just trying to get the right parts into it and what are you rating the most in the situation. But those discussions are helping you when you go on to the field. Then you can agree to make the same calls, or at least have the right argumentation for why are you calling the things on the field. And then the last part, the judgment. Try to be in the right angles, and then fast decisions and hopefully correct. Is, difficult to practice as if you have the other three parts correct and you make sure to stand in the right position, then you will always have a good argument for why your judgment is correct. And of course, sometimes you're wrong. Also have videos with me being wrong. But what you see in the second you see it, you have to trust that part. Then we come to the rule changes. First, they are not fully approved yet. I just got an update today that this probably should be approved really, really soon. And they will be valid from the 1st of April. I will not comment anything about the rule, what have been said in discussions. I will just mention the rule and see if you have anything you don't think is clear, or but it will not be much of discussion. First, illegal run and illegal kick. It will be a loss of down and 5 yards now. And summarized on the right side what they're penalized with. And the illegal kick by the runner is from the spot foul, and illegal run is from the scrimmage line. And I actually have an example because I think I have seen illegal kick once because someone thought it was funny to punt the ball on a 4th down. I think it was back in 2009. And illegal one I haven't seen on high level except for this one case. And as you can see, the ball is spot on the 3-yard line, so we're in the no one zone. It's a 4th down. And you can actually see, and the referee is always already now an illegal play. But yeah, we are in the no-1 zone. This ended up with being a 5-yard penalty. There was an on-time play afterwards, where Mexico took a kneel because they had won the game. But next time, it will be just a loss of down. If there were a second remaining, then Austria will have got the ball instead of, having a last play for Mexico.
Claes, excuse me.
Yeah.
Is there a case to have a illegal kick as a blow and throw from a mechanics standpoint point of view? Since everyone's most of the cases, everyone can see that the ball has touched the foot. So why keep playing?
And that's a good question. I think it's actually what is changed for. No, earlier on we had that a kick makes the ball dead, but I think it's just having the defense get an advantage of if they can make an interception. It is an interception on a kick. But yeah, it's just giving the defense an possibility to get a better result.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Because I had a case during the Champions Bowl with a shielding on the offense that was super obvious. The players stopped running and they looked back at me. And yeah, I'm not going to blow the whistle because this is not a blow and throw. You could take a kneel, but they ran it for a touchdown and sorry, you have to back it there.
But actually, it's good of the defense if it's obvious and they can see they cannot gain better. That makes sure not to make an illegal contact.
Yeah.
Because that can also be a situation that happens afterwards. Then we will have penalties against both. But yeah, never blow it.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yes. Next one is diving definition improved. So it's been changed to diving is an attempt by the runner to avoid a flag pull or make the approach to the flag more difficult by leaning the upper body forward with or without jumping, diving, dipping or spinning. Diving is a type of flag guarding and is illegal. And here I have an example. Some will say he loses his balance. But it's actually, you can also see, and there's also another foul on the play. Don't look at that. Look at the runner. And it's actually making the defender in the end zone is stopping up because he's diving and actually uses this part to approach the goal line. The ball will be caught at the 7-yard line. You can see that 48 had a chance to get forward. But it's difficult to, as a defender, you will not move forward when someone is leaning towards you. It's not the best case of showing it, but it's the best one I had on the video. So it's tightening the definition of diving that people does not have to be in area to make the flag pull. It can also just be that is making it more difficult to approach the runner. Then we have batting backwards passes. Backward pass shall not be batted forward by the offense, and that will be a 5-yard and loss of down from the spot of foul. I haven't seen a similar play, but it protects the sport and the gameplay. I think the case I could imagine easiest is on a shotgun snap with a player in motion and the quarterback, instead of catching the ball, bats the ball forward. That will actually be illegal because a snap is a backward pass. But the player in motion is now the quarterback and cannot run with the ball, so I don't see the big advantage of the offense. But it's a rule we have to know, and preventing teams from being too creative. Then we have touchback safety enforcements, that for fouls after a change of team possession committed by a team in their own end zone, and before the ball is brought out of this end zone, the enforcement spot is the touchback spot. So you can take this clip as an example. You will see that the quarterback is throwing an interception in the end zone. And the left hand is actually making a flat guard in the end zone. By 21 rules, that would actually have been a safety. Now it will be a touchback instead. You can see in slow here that the hand is coming down and preventing the receiver from getting the flag. So the rules is actually made to prevent plays like these to be at 2 points for the offense. And the offense gets the ball back. So yeah, if you get the ball in the end zone with clean hands, and you don't make a foul or if you make a foul before getting the ball out of the end zone, then it will be half the distance from the 5-yard line. So you'll get the ball in this case at the 2.5 instead of a safety. Then we have an extra enforcement on interception returns on the extra point. So if we have an extra point is being intercepted, if there's a foul on the return, then it will be carried on the next play. I actually saw a case in the Champions Bowl where the official was asking me afterwards, was it wrong what I did? And I was like, yeah, but it made really much sense that when the previous offense is making and holding to prevent a 2-point conversion, that there will be a foul with 10 yards on the next play. But yeah, this is only when there is an interception on the extra point. It will be carried on to the next play if it's an illegal contact properly.
Excuse me. One had a case also in Champions Bowl. Or is it illegal contact or personal fouls?
Both. It's 10-yard basic spot fouls. But most, personal foul, aiming, illegal contact.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Interference.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not just the one occasion. It's the whole group. Thank you.
Yeah. Then a really big change. Jersey number 0 is legal. I just saw the news today that they're trying to do the same in college football, I think it was. Then the timeout definitions have been changed slightly. So right now it says that a charged team timeout, including the play clock, shall not exceed 90 seconds. That is now put down to the timeout shall not exceed 60 seconds. And the referee can shorten the timeout if both teams agree. And the timeout shall be no longer than the referee deems necessary to fulfill the purpose for which they were declared. So, actually, I used it in Champions Bowl kind of this already, that if there was no complaints about a timeout taken for stopping the clock in the last 2 minutes, the most common use of timeout, at least on club teams. Then it's just like, I'm expecting you're ready to play immediately after I have announced this. And then, whistle it ready afterwards. Of course, you can see if a coach enters the field, then the timeout will take 60 seconds. But yeah, it makes the rules easier to shorten timeouts where you don't need to wait, and then you stand afterwards asking both teams, are you ready? Are you ready? Then we have unfair tactics. It was also used kind of already. It allows to punish with 10 yards on plays where there is no possibility of an error by the player. So an intentional foul to gain an advantage must be assumed. And here we are typically in situations where offense is on their own 20 to 24 yard line, and defense will like to force them to get a new first down. At Champions Bowl, it was actually already someone had a game where the defense made an illegal blitz from 1 yard away just to force them into 4 new downs instead of a second down 2 yards from the middle. And that was enforced with 10 yards already there. Because you know a blitz from 1 yard, then you know it's on purpose. And we can also find other situations where people are making fouls just to take advantage of the situation. And that was all on the rule changes. Then we have mechanics for the positioning. There are 4 main points I'll take here. And that's communication. We have to cover the lines. We have to avoid situations where confidence trustworthy can be challenged. And we have backwards mechanics. You can say the 2 first parts is part of the rules. The latter one, actually the third one should have been another topic, but I actually put it in here. But because it comes into this part as making us as team look good. So in the communication, we have to assist each other. So telling, where am I going to be? Where do you have to go? And inform what your responsibility is. You don't have to say, okay, this receiver is my key or something like that. Just, I have this line, because in flag football, we are most talking about which lines to cover. We could actually improve it by having keys at some point. But we often don't know. Everyone can run everywhere, and it goes so fast. So having the line we have to cover and which area to look, then we are in a good position. And I have some videos. First, with the communication, I have a good example. I will just So if you look down here and here, you see here that's marked. I'm taking the midline, and he's telling he's going further down. This is from a 5-man mechanic, so it's a little bit different from when it's 4-man. But you can see the communication, and you can see the movements immediately. And then everything is covered. So having visible signs to assist each other it's not easy to, you can see when it's good. When officials know each other, then it's like something you just know, then you don't need as much communication. But sometimes it's still good to do it even though you already know it. When I officiate with my flag football team, sometimes it's just like when I was saying, yeah, Rasmus, you've got that line. Yeah, I know, like where you just, and then 2 plays after, Rasmus, you know where to go? Yeah. So you're like keying yourself into the game still, and also remember what's like, make sure everyone is in the game if you're telling them which line to cover. And then we have the next part will be cover the lines, because if we don't have our lines, then it's difficult to judge if they manage to get to the line. And it's important to remember which line has the highest importance. And I know some officials really like to follow the play. And I know especially on first down, there's a long way for the field judge to go from the 12-yard line to the 20 to the midline, and leaving a big open space. But if you have a 1 yard error in the middle of the field, it's not a big problem. 1 yard in flag football doesn't mean much unless it's around the lines to gain. So first we have one here. This is walking way too slow compared to where the situation is. So if we look again on the field judge, back here, you can see it's only 2.5 yards. If he has the midline, he has to be there fast. I understand why the player is it's not right with the spot, because we don't have any officials on the midline, and the midline is important in this case. And then you can't be wrong. I had back in the Danish semifinal and 2009-10, I was really impressed by an official. He had, I think, 3 tough calls during the game, where he was on the middle or goal line and just called it immediately. And it was just like, yeah, I like to complain with him about the spot, but I know he's the right position. He took the call so fast, it's difficult to see. Now we have 2 just here. He's moving really fast to the midline, but you will see the side just. And do you know where the side judge has to be? Anyone knowing where the side judge has to be before the players?
I believe it should be in the end zone, no? End goal line?
Yeah, on the goal line. And this play is going deep. And you can see here, she is coming afterwards. This play we'll come back to later. But that part. But you can see that the official is not getting to the goal line in time. So if that had been a catch at a flagpole, you don't know if it was in or on the 1 yard line. We have to know that because points matters. But as you perhaps also saw, if the technique will assist me. See the quick movement by the field judge. And here we have a case with the side judge staying on the midline. We can actually see the side judge is moving backwards. What could be the error with the side judge coming backwards to cover the midline here? Everyone knowing the issue about having the side judge on the midfield?
The ref is usually slower than the players on the deep balls.
Exactly. So, in this case, the flag pull is shortly after the midfield, but the side judge will never have a chance to catch up and being on the goal line before the players. So make sure the side judge, no one cares about the middle early on, because it's the goal line where you get the points. And the side judge always have to make sure to be the deep one. And especially with the rules nowadays, most teams know that it's actually better to be 1 yard short on of the midline than getting over the midline. So a midline is not that important early on. Side judge has to be ready on the goal line. And especially running backwards. Never run against the play unless you have a really good line to cover. You can see he's moving first the one way and then the other way. It's making you slower. It's also making sure you have your lines covered. Now you end up having 2 men on the midline. The only issue is you lost a guy on the scrimmage line. So if the quarterback is scrambling, no one can see if there's an illegal forward pass. When you have the 5-man mechanic, then sometimes you can have the luxury of having 2 men on the same line. With 4 men, you don't have the luxury of having a double coverage on the lines before you are 1 yard away from the goal line. So make sure all the lines are covered. Yeah, we actually have a 5-man mechanic. So we have a scrimmage line or line of scrimmage, we have a goal line, and we have an end line. We have 4 officials. Which line do you think will be the best one to double coverage?
Go around it, goal line.
Goal line, yes. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Because you can see they're not missing one here. And we cannot see the official on this play up here. But we can see the official in this corner. On the next play, you can see there is the 4th official. Then it will have been better to move this guy here down to the goal line. You can see the feet up here now. Here is the 5th man. And still only 1 guy on the goal line. Especially because goal line, there can be a lot of traffic. So it can be difficult to see across. Here we have another case. Also 5-man mechanic. And you can see we have 2 men actually starting on the goal line. And the official here will move down to the corner. Because it's much easier to move to the end line. The end line will not be threatened in the beginning. And this official will stay on the scrimmage line. Using the resources you have as good as possible. And you also have to be careful not to drift. Because here you can see the official is actually drifted into the end zone and not standing on the line. So keep your line, but also have to remember to take care of yourself if the players come out to you. So it's good, but the distance to the sideline is good. So you have some area to protect yourself if the players come in full speed. Then I also have an example of situations where confidence trustworthy can be challenged. I will wait with that clip to I can come with some other examples, because if you cannot cover the line to gain, then the players, especially if you're wearing the stripes, if you're having your team kit on, that's just like, okay, they're not good officials, I have to expect that. But if you have the stripes on, if you're not being able to cover your lines, what else are you lacking when you officiate? And there can also be other cases where, like, if you make visible errors, then your trust or the player's trust in you will fall. And those can be really difficult to come back from, because if the first has seen some big errors, then it's difficult to know what errors you are having along. And I have a really unlucky example from the British Championship. Where we have handoff. And then he scrambles. And now the referee whistles the ball dead. And the commentators was after the referees rest of the day, and you could just hear that the trustworthiness in the officials were really low, unless it was the top British officials going into the field. And they first came to this field in the semi-final, I think, or final. But an error like this is just like, it's really difficult to come back from in a game.
Could you play that clip again first, real quick? Thank you.
Do you see the handoff? And here comes the whistle.
So the referee on this call that it was an illegal hand or illegal run?
Yeah, I don't know if it was illegal run he called or it was the 7 seconds, but he's blowing the ball dead. And
it was definitely a legal run. He didn't see the handoff, the snap to the person lined up at running back. I was there and witnessed it. It didn't go down very well.
To be fair, I didn't see it either on the first clip that you showed. That's why I asked for you to run it again.
Yeah, I can also add here as a referee, when you see multiple players in the backfield, get to the sideline, get in position where you can see the ball between those players. Because here, it's difficult to see when the snap goes to number 8 that he can hand off. If you get out here to the sideline, you have a much better to see who gets the ball first, and if there's a handoff. You sacrifice to see the blitz a bit, but normally you can see what the angles are beforehand. It is important to see those double QBs and get out of the way. But I think Jet also have a video of on the IFAF Media YouTube of double QBs.
I believe the mechanics right now calls for that for the headrest to move to the sideline when you have men back.
Yeah, that I know it's been upgraded, especially because of especially the American team. Latin American teams love to have multiple QBs. or multiple players in the backfield.
On the very next play from memory, the ball was intercepted as well, so it got even worse.
Yeah.
I just have a quick technical thing. I think Google Meet and a lot of other meeting platforms, like streaming videos, there's a bit of lag. So I also have a hard time seeing the snap going to number 8. But that's just a pure technical platform thing.
Well, yeah, it's often that part with videos.
Yeah.
But again, even if it was a legal one, then blowing the ball dead, you have to be completely sure that you're doing the right thing, and the illegal one is not one of the things that you can blow dead. If you was just throwing the flag, then you could make sure that the error was taken back. Then that would probably be questionable, but yeah, now they are officiating with team officials, then probably one of those team officials have been looking at the ball instead of the place they had to look. So it could have been saved that way. But yeah, Neil, you can probably confirm that this referee had a really tough day. They completely day then. Commentators.
This was a bit of one of the reasons why officiating in the UK has changed after that finals day. About training has changed, and the qualifications for officials in the UK is changing for this forthcoming season, which is can only be a good thing.
Yeah. I think he did a good job generally the most of the day, but you don't have high expectations after seeing this. And then we have backwards mechanics. It's not covered much. And when I look around, it's also quite visible that really few officials know what to do. The biggest issue is to find clips of good officials not knowing what to do, because it's not that often we have good interceptions where the ball is returned much and where you can use something from the mechanics. So it's actually, yeah, we will see most this guy over here. The ball will be intercepted here. Then instead of standing, just follow the play. Make sure to get to the midline as soon as possible. Because, again, 1 yard on an interception is nothing, but knowing if the ball was short of the midline, that's more important, because the smart teams will either try to run it all the way and make sure that it don't get stopped. Other teams will make it quite visible that they don't want to cross, but sometimes defenders are not knowing what to do when they have the ball. To get the line, also in backwards mechanics. I also have here where the referee or line judge should have taken the goal line, because you see here an interception. Then someone has to search for the goal line. Now you could also see that those officials here were just standing still, so it's not because we have good officials on this field. Let's still search to the line. If you keep an eye down here, you'll see soon there's an interception. An official making sure that the midline is covered. usually breaking down a second before thinking, oh, I have to get the midline. And then it's much easier to see now we actually had a return above midline because the defender probably didn't know that it was going to stop beforehand. But always think of, and it's mostly the line judges and the field judges that have to think of, should I have the midline? The referee will always think about, I have the goal line. Because if the referee doesn't have the goal line, then probably no one else will have it. That was the mechanics during the play. Now we are moving to the mechanics between the plays. And this is where we really can make sure that we keep the flow of the game. Because if we are fast between the plays, then the teams will not notice us. Not even the fast-paced teams, where we will be waiting for, especially the 7 yards. Because the ball has to be spotted, or we need to have the spot and then move 7 yards. If the offense is a no huddle, I can mention the Mexican men's national team. They can be really fast. They can also be too fast. But their normal pace we should be able to keep. We can also, with the discussions, here we can, I will come back to that, and we have also in the enforcements. I'll just close this down. Here we have an example where we have to wait for the field judge. Everyone is ready. And then we have to get the field judge set. The blitzer needs to get time. We want to avoid these situations where we have to wait first for the field judge to get in position, and then the blitzer needs a chance. Here we have another case. Here, this is the field judge spotting the ball. Oh, that was actually the one we had before. Does anyone know how we could have gone this faster? That was actually easier because there are hash marks on the field, so it's quite fast to count the 7 yards. But if the field just have marked the 7 yards, he spotted the ball. If he had marked it on the field, then the blitzer could get ready immediately, and then he could move backwards to the sideline. We have an example here. You just need the play finished first. We have an foul. Hold on the other sideline. Field judge is actually marking it up because you get told what the foul is, so the referee can enforce it. And if you had hash marks, then we will avoid this beanbag. Now we are wasting some time on the beanbag, but that's not the part of this. And now the field judge is marking the 7 yards. Took some time, and the blitzer can be set, and you can get fast to the sideline, and the play can start quickly after. So if you as a field judge is in the field and everyone is waiting for you. Mark the 7 yards on field. And then the blitzer set trigger, and you can also get set trigger.
Well, excuse me. So what is happening from the proper mechanics point of view? Because I've been taught that it should be the line judge that spots from the foul, but it's a field judge that just takes it upon himself. Where does this come from? Is it communication with the team, or?
There are, as you can see, those two have the flag.
Yeah.
The referee has to announce it. Right here, the one that can enforce it fastest is the field judge in this case.
Yeah.
It can also depend on the experience in the crew. So if you have officials that are not comfortable with enforcing, then you of course don't make them enforce it. But we will have some better example of enforcements later. But it could also be that the field just get the ball and then can spot it if normally the line judge will get the spot quick. But if you as a field judge and in field, then it's also easier to mark the 7 yards on the field and then get out.
Yeah, that was the point that was standing out for me. So thank you for the clarification.
And Aaron, here we also have the field just moving beforehand. It gets lucky that we don't have a double hut, because as soon as he moves away from this spot, he cannot know if this guy is jumping beforehand. No one can see if he is 7 yards away now. And sometimes there can come a motion, then he will perhaps move sideways with the official not 7 yards away. He can also move forward. So always make sure that you have the 7 yards. You will get back into those. You can avoid a situation where your trustworthiness is being challenged, and you will have a big discussion about something you could avoid. So make sure to keep the 7 yards until the ball is snapped. Or you are 100% sure no one will be 7 yards away and they are having the full team not blitzing. I don't know when that will happen, but that'll be the only situation I can see you can have any reason to leave the 7 yards. And in those cases, perhaps they find out before the snap, oh, we want to blitz, and then they look at you, and then they are 5 yards, oh yeah, I can blitz. So stay 7 yards away. And then that was about, making sure the 7 yards are keeping the flow of the game and you're staying cover the line. There was probably more to that part. Then we have the discussions. When you have discussions, keep it simple. Sometimes discussions can be necessary. There can be games where you can feel there's a heated situation, where it actually can be a good idea to throw a flag, even though you know it's not a foul. Then pretend to discuss it, because then the teams will think, oh, okay, we're on the limit. It's not the best way, but it's a possibility, because a flag is a really good symbol of there was something that was not enough. But this has to be rarely. Also discussions. I have some examples where there are 5 officials in this discussion. Well, I don't know when the situations will be where all 5 have something to input unless they have not been following the areas. And we could also take the example actually from before. In this case, where we had a flag over here, both the line judge and the side judge are for a flag. And you can see when the ball is dead, walking to each other. You contact offense, you contact offense, agree, yes, and then you can tell the referee. Yeah, we have to watch here. There was an illegal contact here. We have a flag. And when the guy standing next to has a flag for illegal contact, why having a discussion? In this case, it's about saying, I have illegal contact defense. I don't know who else should have seen it, but there's no reason to have, I will guarantee that all 5 have not seen this situation. So now you just used a lot of time on discussing a foul that was clear for the official standing next to. I can also add, I can ask how long should the first 18 minutes of a half take?
Eight.
We have no injuries and no timeouts by the teams. How long should the first 18 minutes of a half take?
Hopefully 18 minutes.
Exactly.
Ideally.
Ideally, perhaps you can have one where you have to discuss a little bit longer and take a timeout as an official. This game took 26 minutes and 32 seconds. So they actually added 50% of the time almost of the half in the 18 running minutes to discuss. Here we have another example. It was easy when you know that it took so long time. And they have a holding. Clear holding. Also, you don't need to stand all 5, because if you don't have an input, there's no reason to join the club. Then instead you could protect the spots. You could prepare for the enforcement. Now you can see now the video is 1 minute long, and we started the video almost with the snap. Yeah, after 3 seconds. Here we have another example. I think we have a flag throw from both the field judge and the line judge. We have a flag here. They quickly talk, the referee listen, and they get off. No need to have extra input. And if you look at it, the referee is only standing, nodding, listen, so he can announce the foul. I think probably perhaps asking one question. is the one who sees the situation best that has to find out if there was an illegal contact or not. Here we have another example. It was the one we saw earlier with the side just being a little bit slow. He also had the foul here. And we have, I think, 3 flags thrown. You can see the 3 officials seeing the situation, going towards each other. And if you'll see, the referee will come. The referee knows he has to get some information. And when we look at it again, you can watch how the referee is coming up to get the information from what happened on this play. So the 3 officials will go together and meet in the middle, and the referee is coming in the direction. The referee doesn't know what happened, probably, at least didn't see the situation well, so just need to listen and make the enforcement. And when we see it the 3rd time, then you can actually add from the enforcement, look at the line judge. The line judge kind of already know what happens. He has a good guess on this is probably 10 yards against the defense. So if you look at him, he finds the line of scrimmage. If you look here, see the flags waving, time stops, goes to line of scrimmage, and it's actually now, while we have the replay, walking 10 yards. We're still on the replay. Okay. And now we can see he's going into the field because he has the spot.
Down judge. Down judge.
So yeah. It's about keeping it down. And sometimes you will have physical games and you want to make sure the players don't escalate it. But it can also be difficult. I had a good situation from the World Championship final, the men's between US and Mexico. If you're really detailed, you'll see that my role was quite bumpy in the beginning because I was talking a lot to the players to tell them don't exceed the lines. And that's instead of throwing the flag, because if I could talk to, then it's much better than throwing a flag and wave it off afterwards. Then we have already started on the enforcements. But the key word is the teamwork. And here we have a slow case of the enforcement because we end up with the referee being the enforcer. So the referee has to get the foul, he has to announce, and then he also has to enforce. and also explain to our offense what happened. So while doing this, he explained and announced, then someone could have made the enforcement. Now it was quite easy because they were on the 5-yard line before, so it's 2.5. But especially where you don't have hash marks. That's just the referee, so the referee doesn't have to make the enforcements. It's quite slow when you force the referee to make the enforcements. Then we have a good one here where everyone is working together. The referee is getting ready to announce. And that's actually time for one to keep the previous spot. Always make sure when you have any hash marks, where was the previous spot? And remember it. Especially if there comes a challenge. I know it's not often we are doing the 2-man enforcement, so it's quite important to remember where the previous spot was before you make the enforcement, in case you are walking the wrong distance or from the wrong spot. And here we also have an example of the line just enforcing, so the referee can announce. And good work by the field just to split them up and keep them down. So here, while the referee announces, the line just enforces the 10 yards. Not always easy when the players are in the way. And it takes some time to walk the 10 yards. But then we can get ready really quick. So as Christopher asked early on, when the line judge is making the enforcement, it's often triggered because then, just as we saw with the field judge, which marked the 7 yards on field, then the line judge can also just put the ball and then go backwards to the sideline. And then we actually have a good example here of also the last official. Even if we didn't know exactly what happened, he could explain to the official. As soon as there are some communication, then we can quickly share on the sidelines. And here we have a really quick enforcement. We have a false start. Now we cannot see the enforcement. But you can see it as soon as the replay is finished. We are actually ready to snap the ball again. And the snap was 2 seconds. Here we are 31 seconds. So it's quite quick when you can make sure you enforce and announce in less than a half a minute. And in those cases, of course, don't make stop the clock. Do you have any questions regarding the mechanics?
I do have one. Okay, so I can, so my question, is there anywhere the mechanics of 5-man mechanics described, like a PDF file, something like that?
And no.
Okay.
I know the Swedish Championship, Christopher, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The Swedish Championship, they put a 5th man in and just said, then we have more on extra official deep. When we did it at Champions Bowl, we were thinking of which area is needed to be covered. So actually, if we go back to the one with the interception, because we have the side judge, we have the field judge, everything. I cannot remember if I think we called this the down judge, and here we have the line judge. When you're starting on the 5-yard line, the most annoying line is the goal line, because referee has to stand on the goal line to see if there's a safety. And that makes it more difficult to look for the blitz. So in this case, the extra official is actually moving backwards, as you can see here in the shadow, to cover the extra line, to make sure that the referee has a better view on the blitz and shielding. And if you use that principle in the 5-man mechanic, what is the weak link in the 4-man mechanic in this situation? Then you will have a really good situation. We can also take example with the goal line. Before the snap, here is the field judge. He is normally starting 7 yards away. He has marked the 7 yards. The side judge has taken over the 7 yards afterwards, because she has to go down to half the end line. And then when it's a short situation, make the extra official on the line be on the line to gain, because then we don't need the movement of 3 yards or 5 or 7. There's still a really good view on the line of scrimmage. So in goal line situations, get an extra man on the goal line, just as we talked on earlier. When you have the first downs, then you also get an extra man who can run trigger in the areas between, because you will often have situations where there are 20-25 yards between the lines the officials are covering. I try to narrow that gap down, so either the extra official or the field judge will have the midline, and the other official will have the empty area between the 2 other officials. That's the best principle to give. Then we will see if there will be at some time. We will probably add the 5th official mechanics. Officially, right now, I will only recommend it in games where you have officials enough where they don't need a break. So, for example, this is a final. We don't have any more games. So we had extra officials, so we could put one in to make sure if the ran smoothly. But the extra benefit is really low. And in this game, we didn't have any situations where it was really beneficial, as I believe. But you never know when you get in those cases where the fifth man is actually making the crucial difference.
I can confirm from the Swedish Championship we did not have a thorough plan such as you did during Champions Bowl. It was just to help covering the deep passes.
And Omar, I saw you also on this. I think Thalmann from the US actually have some ideas also behind, which is shared at the World Games. I was not present there, but I heard from Marcus that he told something about the 5-man mechanic.
Yeah, an idea was to put another man on the line, because one of the problems we had was his glitches, and it wasn't always easy to know if there's a sack or not, because sacks are always so quick. So if the down judge is looking, if he can help looking at the quarterback, because we have another man on the line, it would be really helpful. So that's what the thought we had. So another man on the line.
Yeah, that could also be difficult some points, because the QB blitz is the most important interfering. That's the most difficult to completely see, because there will always be angles when you only have the referee looking.
So for your example, from the Champions Bowl, so even if there wasn't any crucial plays where the 5-man mechanics did something crucial from this point of view, standing as a ref on the first and 20, having the angle, being able to watch the blitzer from point A to point B without having to second guess yourself is super helpful. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that was also...
Yeah, so maybe he could have handled it, but just being in this position, you're giving yourself the tools to really make a good game as a ref.
Exactly. Jet was also really pleased about not having to cover the goal line. Yeah. Because you get out of that bad angle. And yeah, there will probably be some cases, and very often, probably it could be better to have 4 eyes on the QB. But it also seems like a waste to have the 4 eyes set on one matchup, when you actually can cover all matchup with 5-man. But yeah, I think it has to be tested more. But I will not advise people to put extra officials in games just to have extra officials. When it's better to have fully energized officials to all games. So it's only when you have extra officials, and from my own point of view, of course I want it to be 5-man every time, but as a tournament organizer also, it's also a part of, is it beneficial enough for the cost added? But yeah, it's definitely something to work on, and perhaps it's also hopefully something we could see at the European Championship, that they could put a 5th man in the finals or medal games. Then we come to the part of being a better you. And one of the main parts is the confidence. And you have to trust yourself. I think everyone here in the call know the rules. It also sounds like those active also know how to apply the mechanics. Already here, you have the fundamentals to be a good official on the field. And by this area, you're already ready to officiate in the international games, then we can always put this part up. Then also about supporting your teammates. It's a little bit controversial to say what is their fear, but it can also be what is their weakness. Try to avoid putting them into bad situations. Make sure they feel comfortable. And I think actually this part, I think that's one thing I have done really great during my international tournaments. Probably have to ask my teammates when we have had fixed crews. But I also test their limits. In the World Championship in 21, I was also like pushing one of the officials to have a game as a referee. It was kind of what he feared to be doing. But if you make it in a comfortable environment and you give the support, then he actually got a high confidence after that game. So it's just like building up, making sure, or helping your teammates to be better. Also had one in the crew who didn't want to do, I think it was line judge. Okay, no problem. Then that's fine by not having line judge. Then we can work around it. But it's also like, pushing the limits within reasonable areas, also so they can build on and be better. The other thing, I was a little bit afraid because I put it in a game between Russia and the US. And when Russia started by scoring a deep touchdown, then you were like thinking, okay, this game should be a blowout, so it should be an easy game to have other positions so you could practice. So luckily it turned out good, but we were a little bit rusty in the beginning. And then we were comfortable the rest of the tournament because now we had done this. Now everyone knew like, okay, I can be a referee, I can lead, I can do great. And when you have this set up, it will lead to less errors. Because if you don't trust yourself, then you will not throw the opponent flags. And if you trust yourself and you have the support of your teammates, then the errors can be explained. I can take in the Danish final here in October. We had one of the most experienced crews you can find in a national final. All four of us had the experience with the World Championship finals. And we made an error on a side snap where another guy ended up crossing or blitzing. And we could explain, okay, he started less than 7 yards away. Afterwards, we could see on video, okay, he was more than 7 yards away. But we could explain it because we were supporting each other and we had the confidence to say, okay, and we stand by it. And we made an error. We also said afterwards, that was an error. But we had the trustworthiness to make the error and look that we meant we sure this was what happened. That was how we saw it. Therefore, we are calling a flag for illegal blitz. And the most important part of the support and trust, you dare to make the correct and tough calls. It can be difficult to call offensive pass interference on a game-winning touchdown. But if there's a push-off, you have to dare to call that push-off because it's the correct call. Now I could actually have put another video of Jet making call a sack in on a 2-point conversion to tie the game with seconds remaining. And the commentator saying like that was not a sack. You could see in the video afterwards. Fully correct call. Sack, throw the ball. It would have been a 2-point conversion. Now it was a sack instead, and the conversion was no good. That's because he trusts himself to make the right judgment. And he's stood by. I could also hear on him afterwards writing on Messenger that, okay, it was the right call. But he could stand by. I saw a sack, I whistle a sack, therefore no good. Then we come to the philosophy. And here, alignment is important. Do we have a common understanding? And that was a really key change going from the World Championship in 2014 to the Euros in 2015. Instead of having officials to cover the games, we made the international games a clinic. And we had video reviews the day before, just so we could have a common understanding. What is illegal contact? What are we doing when there are multiple QBs, etc. Then again, are you and the others comfortable? Is there a crew leader in the crew? And is there balance in the crew? If you're missing a crew leader, then sometimes you are looking around and no one takes the lead. Other times it can be totally fine because you can work that part of, but sometimes you need a stable hand by your side. I could come with an example later on a situation where it looks worse. And is there balance in the crew? If you have a crew leader, does the other of the crew, officials dare to say something against the crew leader? Or is like the crew leader the alpha and what the crew leader says is the right thing to do? Because that's not right. All officials have the same right to say something, and their words should rate the same. I actually had a situation that could look a little bit wrong at the World Championship, where I was field judge and I had a side judge, and if they were flag, technically correct, I saw the same situation and it was like, according to the philosophy, I felt we should not call it. And I also told him afterwards, also to make sure there was balance in the crew. It was good, you threw the flag, because technically it was a foul, but it was not big enough for us to call it. So making sure it was not like me being dominating above him, because if you're being dominating or being dominated, then you're probably not comfortable in officiating. And if you're not comfortable, then it'll probably lead to more errors because your confidence will also fall a little bit down. And then game management. As an official, you're not a playmaker. It's not you who has to make being divisible. You shall not try to be the one deciding the game. So sometimes it can be compensating that you try to correct everything. Because, okay, I know there's a foul on every play. And I know it too well because I was that type of official in my younger days. Because, yeah, you try to, at least to the other part, you want to be seen. Like, see me, I can find fouls on most plays. You can be a good official. But if you lack this part, you will not develop. And I can go back again to Spain. I was really furious because, furious is too much to say, but I was annoyed by when we had the feedback on the games. I did super on this part with mechanics rules, so I didn't get any feedback. After the tournament, I got some feedback because I was asking, like, what shall I do to improve? And this here was the one I got. I was like, it's tough to hear, but it's something that's really developed me. And if you say that the bronze medal games are second priority in tournaments and finals are first, then you can actually see on my international tournaments that until 15, I got the bronze medal games. And then from 16 and onwards, I've been lucky enough to get the finals. And I think this is a key part. Because there was some really good words I got there. And it can be really difficult because as an official, if you are new and you're not well established, you want to show that you're really great and you feel like, okay, if I can show, I can throw hard flags, that you will be more visible. But visibility is not always a good thing. So it's a difficult part to balance. I also know that the Italian men, at least in the 15, I think, I cannot remember 16, but like when they saw I was entering the field, they were like, oh no. Because they're also good at playing physically, so it was easy for me to throw a lot of flags. Perhaps they still have that part when I enter their field, but at least it's not that visible on them anymore then. And I have a similar case here when the crew leader is missing. Is it where someone has to make the compensation and try to fill out all the other spots of the crew? I've been to a tournament where most of the crew teams seems to go really well. And then there was some imbalance in one crew, and you could also see from that tournament that the games they had didn't look as smooth. And there was when I was talking to one official from that crew, I could hear that it was really passionate and really wanted to show and knew the rules, knew what to do. But if you're new into the international games or the high-level games, high intensity, then it can be difficult if you don't have someone experienced to lean up, or again, not being comfortable, or someone you don't trust in your crew. So that official ended up probably looking worse than the official was. And the bad thing is then that will be what is remembered about this official from that tournament. And it's not easy to get second chances. Luckily, the official have got second chances and doing quite well today. But yeah, the official probably also had to get kind of the same process as I had. So it's like you have to develop, you have to have the chemistry with the team also. And this chemistry and mental is a really undervalued part of officiating. I actually think first time I heard the one with chemistry was during the women's finals in UK in December. I was just like, when the commentators was like, yeah, it's difficult for these officials to just be mixed together on the field, having low chemistry. It's just like, yeah, why are we not talking about that more? Because often when you see a mixed crew, you have to know who you are officiating with. And are you comfortable with others in your crew? Are you comfortable with yourself in the crew? And are you aligned with the philosophy so you can get the flow of the game? I think my experience is it's easy to get a good chemistry with nearly all officials. But there's always, if all of you look at your life, you will always could find one person you didn't have any good chemistry with, where it's just like going different directions or having different opinions. And yeah, perhaps you don't like each other of some stupid reason, like perhaps there's not a reason for it, but it's just chemistry. And then it's either you will have to make sure you don't officiate together, or you will have to try to be as comfortable with each other. That actually also makes me come back to this trust. Because we have to work as a team. We have to work for each other. And if you have the confidence, you will make, as I said, less errors. Again, I can look at myself. When I was in Tampa officiating the US Worlds, then I had a terrible semi-final in the best division of COVID. I made perhaps I made a wrong call at some point, but there was also one time where I was marking the 7 yards and I didn't stop the play, and it ended with a touchdown that could have decided the game. And I had to make the score stand because I didn't blow that when the ball was snapped. That's not an error I make in the IFAF rules, but I was new in the rules, and even though the rules are really similar, I didn't have the same confidence, so I made an error. It's about making sure your confidence is as high as possible, and that's mainly done by knowing the rules and being able to apply the mechanics is the best way. Do you have any more questions to this part? Or it can be a little bit boring with just me talking. And also, as we said, that having a crew leader can also be just someone experienced. I also saw situations or heard that one of the best officials in the world, that the players didn't trust her, or like they didn't have the same, I don't know, like they didn't know how experienced the official was, but they were like, oh, you probably don't know the rules, and like, so you can still meet bad times, but if you and your crew are good together, having the chemistry, and you have the confidence, then you know it's just the players not knowing better. Then
I have a quick question on time management. When it comes to time management, there's a lot of competitions, special national competitions, where you don't necessarily have a play clock, or you don't necessarily have time being managed by a scoreboard, for example. Whose roles and responsibilities are for a 7-second passing clock, and as well as the play clock and the game clock.
If you start by those, it's completely set. The passing clock is 7 seconds, organized by the referee.
Okay.
The play clock, I would say, depends on the level. The mechanic rule says it's at the side cuts. So it will indicate when there are around 10 and 5 seconds remaining. If you're not that experienced, then it can be an idea to have it at the referee, but the referee has so much else to do, and it's actually a really good way to keep the side cuts involved in the game by having the 25 seconds, because many games, the side cuts is just like walking around, trying to look around, and the ball never gets near. So that's also a good part of keeping the person in the game. The game clock can be at anyone, but of course not someone who has the play clock. I really want to know, it should not be at the referee, also because they have the 7-second clock, and there's some administration with stopping and starting the clock. I actually have to look our NFL flag ambassador and multiple world championship referee, finals referee, Desiree Adams. She's actually taking the game clock as a referee. And I actually have to find out how she's doing it. Because the referee, as she says, wants to have all the information, and the coaches are asking her. So it's quite easy for her to communicate it as well, instead of she has to ask how much time, then she just has it. I have to investigate and learn how she's doing it, but else keep it on the sideline. On one of those. And then, of course, also have one to make sure that taking the time of the timeouts. It's actually easy to put it on the one operating the play clock, because it's just 2 times the play clock, plus the 10 seconds you quickly use by starting and finding out there's a timeout.
And also this year we have a scheme with when the both teams are on the same sideline, like we had the Israel finals, right? So it could be the official with a game clock on that sideline, so it would be easier.
Yeah. I can say here in the Champions Bowl final, as you can see, you can only see one team right here. Oh no, you can see both teams on the same sideline. All I'm going to do is do a bit to have this guy having the game clock. So the game clock ended up over here. So it's like everyone wants to have the game clock. Like if it's a new official, then it can be really complicated the last 2 minutes. But yeah, else line judge is a really good place to put it. Field judge is also really good because field judge is alone on the sideline. So either the field judge has 2 officials to look for when the clock has to stop due to the sideline, or the field judge know him or herself when the clock has to stop on their own sideline. Yes, and then the philosophy in order to keep the flow of the game are all fouls necessary to call. Of course, in a close game, then all fouls can be game deciding. But if you have a blowout, if there's an illegal motion, illegal shift, do you need to call it? I can also go back to the false start we saw earlier. That's probably too big to not call. But a small false start. When 3 officials can see him going false start, then probably it should be called. But if it was a little bit smaller than that one, then probably just let it go to keep the flow instead of stopping up. It's also, if you start throwing flags when the game is decided, it has to be sure that you have to show that, okay, this was too much. Of course, all fouls with safety reasons, call them. You don't want anything to escalate. But that can be some places where you turn down your philosophy to just let the players play. And also, is the foul needed to be called the same on different levels? For example, false start. Full start where they are standing a little bit above the line. If we have rookies, do we need to call it? If they start a millisecond before the snap, is it needed on the rookies or in the low level where the speed is lower? If you look at international level, then the players are really fast. So even a small false start is a false start because they can take advantage of it. And it's the same with the blitzing, because there you can also get the advantage of starting earlier. So it's just like the philosophy is not fixed. I can again take the example with the officiating in the US. I had a total different point of view of illegal contact. I kind of threw, I think I threw a few contact fouls where it's just like my IFAF head was just thinking like illegal contact, illegal contact, illegal contact. But there's another philosophy, and it's just you have to adapt to it. or you have to make sure that the players adapt to the right philosophy. And then a really good question with, can the philosophy change during a game? Now it was the general point in the IFAF games when you have a final between the US and Mexico. You know it'll be physical. And then you can try, and it's also other teams that can be physical, but then you can be more strict in the beginning of the game to make sure that it doesn't escalate. But you still have to be fair, and then perhaps the same contact which you called on play 3, then with 5 minutes remaining is perhaps it was borderline contact where you put it as a stop for escalating how the game will flow. That can be a way to do it. I will not say it's the correct way, but it's a possibility. At least you can be more observant. If you have to adapt during the game, or if you have to do something beforehand to attack this, make sure you don't get into a game that gets too physical. And then I could also use the foul. Does the violation has an impact? So when the quarterback throws a ball to the far sideline, but you see holding on your sideline, shall you call the holding? It is a legal contact. Does it have an impact? Probably not. Then it's about where is your philosophy? Is it important to call? Should you take focus by calling it? It's a quite important question to have in mind when you officiate. And now the holding is more difficult because then it's illegal contact. It could have been a shielding, the old shadow block in the same tile 1 second before the flag is pulled. So it's just keeping in order, like, do I need to throw this flag? Or is it okay to keep the flag in the pocket? And perhaps just say, you have to be careful with that one. There could have been a foul. And then again, you have to be careful how you announce it with, be careful with this. I could have called a foul on you. If the other team hears that part, it's just like, why didn't you call a foul? And then they want the penalty, and yeah. And then we have some good tools with, we can use the talk to, as I mentioned earlier, with the World Championship final, where I look not having the best flow in the beginning because I talked a lot to the players in the beginning, and that was to keep the physicality down. And yeah, we don't want to take the focus, so decided games, let it flow. Of course, sometimes the teams are just making so many fouls that we cannot stop throwing flags. And we, of course, still have to make the game fair. And that was actually the last I had with me. Also, see, it took quite a long time. Do we have any final questions? Then I will also think if I have forgotten something. But yeah, it's important to remember that we as officials, we are a team as well, and we have to work together. And we have to take advantage of each other's advantages. It's just like the players on the field. They're also trying to move the game to their benefits. And we can do the same.
I have a question regarding the last point that you made about like when to call fouls, especially in like close games. And I would like to like compare that to what you said before about not stopping the clock to discuss a foul, for example, or especially not to enforce a foul. I find that sometimes quite difficult to manage, especially if there's only like 3 minutes on the clock and you know that the time's actually pretty important, while calling a technical foul, which is not like really important or maybe even like on the line. Can you understand the question and where I'm coming from?
Yeah, it's those technical fouls is much easier to let go when the game is not close. So a technical foul is probably not necessary to call in a game that's decided. But if we have a close game, then we probably need to then we have to look at the impact of the technical foul. And say if we need to call it or not, and it has to be on a level where we feel comfortable ourselves.
But what?
And as a team, and with the time, it's easier to let the clock run in the first half, and probably the first 15 minutes of the second half. If you have a close game, then it's probably a good idea to stop the clock a lot more in the last 3 minutes before the 2-minute warning. So you will have a feeling of, okay, when is the time crucial? Also because when the time is starting to be crucial, you as a crew will also be more sure that you are making the right call, so you could actually end in a situation where you want to discuss the call more when you get to the end of the game. Because, if it's a close game, the calls have more impact. That is more important to make the right decisions.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I totally agree. I was just like unsure because you said before to let the clock run as much as possible.
Yeah, in general, make sure that you don't stop the clock unnecessarily. And if Magnus is still on the call, then he will probably sit and laugh right now, because if we go back to the World Championship in 2012, my crew there were 8 games at the same time, and my games was, I think, always one of the 2 last games to finish, because we were discussing too much, throwing a lot of flags on my field. Not only because of me, but I was a part of it. And that extended the games. And we didn't have much break time. So it's also the environment. So if you have busy games, then there's also probably less discussion and less stopping the clock. Well, if you have the last game, then you can probably stop the clock a little bit more, because you don't have a deadline in the end.
Yeah.
And I can also add on the Thalmann one on having the clock. When you have the smaller tournaments with 1 clock, then I actually love as a referee to have it myself, because then I have an indication of how much time there's left. Even through if it's central clock, like a big bowl where they are deciding themselves what 2 times 12. Then I like as a referee to have it on myself, so I also can assist on the field. As if there are no other questions, then I want to thank you for using the time, and I really hope you all learned something and bring. I can also say that when we get to the mechanics part with the routine plays, I've been really impressed at especially Champions Bowl that the team officials, they have been really good at marking the 7 yards as soon as one of the other officials have the spot. I have seen so many times through my years that the ball has to be spotted before the field judge is marking the 7 yards. So I think it's looking really good with teams being better at officiating, and it also puts higher requirements on us as neutral officials. It's easy to say for me, neutral official, when I also play the sport, which I also know a lot of you do. But when we are out as our job to just officiate, and then it makes our job both easier, but it also puts higher requirements for us to perform. And it's really nice to see that development. And yeah, thank you all for listening. I don't know if Devin wants to say any final words.